Welcome to Rags to Riches, the Ironman gear progression tailored specifically to completing the Chambers of Xerics challenge mode raid solo. From the scuffed early game Ironman gear to the endgame best in slot items, we will be recreating our gear progression by changing and upgrading gear between each raid that we complete. You don't need a twisted bow to begin doing challenge mode raids, but it certainly is a lot more fun when you do have one. Welcome back to Rags to Riches. If you guys missed out on the first episode, do check it out. We'll have the full playlist in the description. That way you really get the full experience as to just how humble the beginnings were in our solo CM journey on the Ironman. This is just the second installment though, so we have a few upgrades, but nothing too crazy. One of the big changes is we managed to upgrade our Mystic robe top to the Aram's robe top. That way, it pairs better with our existing Aram's robe skirt. And keeping in line with the magic upgrades, at some point we got our hands on the ancestral hat. And one final upgrade, we managed to get our hands on a dragon pickaxe at some point during this era, upgrading from the rune pickaxe. So Guardian's Room would have sped up at this point. So our first ever solo CM was first started sometime around mid-June 2023. Sometime later, I'd say about 2 to 3 weeks later, we managed to get our hands on these upgrades around the beginning of July. Start the raid. So I'd like to reiterate that back then, while I did have an Elder Maul, the Elder Maul was not a spec weapon, so we're still rocking the Dragon Warhammer at this point in time. Here we go, Fang. And while I did use the Fang on Tekton, I was kind of 6-ticking the Fang, which is silly in hindsight, but I just wasn't very comfortable with this 5-tick method back then. So that's another little change that we're doing. I mean, 5-ticking is just so much better. The Fang is 5-tick, you know, you never want to use a weapon that's a certain tick, like 5-tick weapon, and then 6-tick it, or like a 4-tick weapon and a 5-tick it, because you're missing out on a lot of DPS that way. But I was a bit newbier back then, so that's what it was like back then. Very fortunately, we did hit the second hammer here, so 2 hammers. Our DPS should be a bit better here. So the difference between this setup and the previous setup, we do have a little bit better of magic DPS here, as we have the Aram's top, which is actually pretty huge, and the Ancestral hat, which gives some magic percentage, damage percentage. What else did we change? Oh, Dragon Pickaxe, that's going to increase or decrease the time at Guardians. Something that I can't recreate is that they did redistribute the occult magic damage into other gear. That's just a game change that, you know, obviously I can't revert, so it is what it is. We're going to be working with that throughout all these runs. Alright, so that's Tekton complete. That took 2 minutes. Which, if you had a scythe, that is an absolute shame, but working with the Fang here, I suppose that's not too bad. Oh, I couldn't find my trident there for a second, but luckily we made it in time. I don't have the exact numbers here, but before we decided to do solo CMs on this account, we did put about 300 or so regular chambers, solo chambers. So a lot of these items that we have, we got from regular chambers. Like, I believe we pulled an Ancestral hat from regular chambers. We pulled the Dragon Hunter crossbow from regular chambers. So we weren't really starting from complete scratch here. Alright, we're gonna do a bit of scavenging. We need room, and I don't have room. So I think what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna sip this. Oh, I have to sip the anti-venom. That's right, that's right. Alright, we should be good to go. We have more than enough supplies. So it turns out with all the scuff accounted for, even with all the scuff accounted for, our 13 brews and 8 restores was more than enough, so we'll continue to do that. Alright, we're gonna bank everything here. And start chopping. Again, this second iteration of the CM setup, not too many changes, just slightly better mage gear, which is mostly going to help at Ulm, which is what is actually what's most important, right? I remember at the time getting the Aram's robe top. I was very happy with that though, because using a mystic top and an Aram robe skirts just looked really, really silly. Like the most scuffed look you could imagine, I suppose. And I did really rock with this current mage setup where I had the ancestral hat along with the Arams. It looked pretty cool in my opinion. That's the second inventory of kindling. Light the brazier. I suppose for the bulk of these runs, we're going to be rocking the Dragon Warhammer. Like I said, I did have the Elder Maul at this point, but man, the Elder Maul spec change didn't happen until I did hundreds upon hundreds of runs already, so. Okay, withdraw all, bank all the mage gear, right? Uh-huh. Bank all that, bank... No, I need the Fang. Bank that, bank that, bank that. Okay, there we go. Hammer spec. We are going to send 2 here, because just as we did in our first iteration, we didn't have any spec weapons. So, I mean, other than the defense reduction on the Dragon Warhammer. And, you know, if you count the Fang, it does have a spec. But we didn't have Dragon Claws, we didn't have a ZCB. Ice Demon was not weak to Demon Bane, so no Emberlight specs or anything like that. And we had to do this melee method on Ice Demon, which is very click intensive. Especially if you compare it to our current methods when we T-bow or Shadow Ice Demon. Actually, that's not even the current method anymore. The current method is to Emberlight whack it over and over again. Which I guess is kind of click intensive now too, but the Emberlight hits so hard, you're done with the boss after a few hits, honestly. Unlike this here, where we're probably going to have to stab this guy about 50 times. For the longest time, I did just Bofa camp the Ice Demon as well, but then sometime down the line, I discovered that the Fang was actually pretty good DPS on Ice Demon. And then I discovered this method that was consistent, 5 tick, you don't miss any hits with the Fang. Alright, that is Ice Demon completed on the Shamans, and we're 50 health here, so a little bit spooky. No, are you kidding? Alright, we'll just save spot from the other side. Oh. Hmm. Uh... calculated, calculated. I know what I'm doing, I swear. I can't believe the shaman just jumped about like 3 times there. Alright, hopefully this run will go a lot smoother. We don't have to do double takes and stuff. I can't stress enough how scuffed that first run was, but I suppose that's really accurate to when I first did solo CMs. They were incredibly scuffed. But I mean, I think I put my Bofa on accurate for the bulk of the raid. I didn't realize until I think Vasa. I didn't realize I was 5-ticking my Bofa until Vasa. But don't worry, now it's on rapid from the get-go. Alright, that's Shamans completed. Give me the Buchu, not the Nox. Thank you. 148 Shamans, that's pretty slow there. Alright, nothing's gonna change about the prep room. 13 juice, 8 mushrooms. I did used to make more brews, but we're not gonna need it. Deposit all. Drop 4 vials. We got exactly 21. Deposit 10. That creates some more room for us. We're gonna pick 8 butchers for our restores. There we go. Make our restores. Put those away. Two more. Alright, heading into Vanguards. Not to worry, this time we don't have to do 2 raids because our Trident was fully charged, so it should have plenty of charges left even after 1 raid. Alright, let's gear up. I am going to try to withdraw all again, and yeah, that just doesn't work for us, huh? It's all messed up. Alright. Okay. We're gonna need Overload, Prayer Enhance. I think we're good. Let's Overload. Let's brew up preemptively. Okay, I'm gonna start with Mage Gear, because that is actually the move in this setup. I'm accustomed to switching into my range gear because I would ZCB spec off rip these days, but that's not going to be the case here. We're going to use Fang specs. Alright, we're gonna have to focus down the major for a couple of hits here to balance things out. Both is not hitting very hard at the moment. Quite unfortunate. More fang specs. But yeah, one of the big things that I wish I implemented sooner was a ring switch. Having a melee ring equipped and still bring the light bearer is very, very good, but I simply just did not do that for the longest time. See, look at how cool this looks with the arrows and the ancestral hat. This was an iconic look, for sure, but I don't think we ended up using that for very long. One more hit. Yeah, sometimes these Vanguard rooms would just last for so long, like we just would not hit very hard with the gear that we had. So right now we're 15 minutes in, and we're still just about halfway through Vanguards. Again, with the uneven switches, it really messed up my inventory a lot. I mean, I'm sure I got used to it at that point, but right now it's very, very strange. So with these new mage items, we probably have a new max hit, actually, so we have to be careful. I imagine it's probably like a 46 or 47. Alright. Yeah, I could preemptively switch back to the gear I was in before, but that's just so much extra clicking. Okay, let's pick up all the potions. And we're going to switch into our range gear here. I mentioned this in the first raid, but I want to reiterate. Thieving room was a little bit different before. The grubs were not stackable, so I had to run all the way to the chest first to dump all my potions into shared, and then all my regular gear into private, and then start opening these chests. But these days, it's different. So I can start opening chests while making my way over here. I am going to dump these potions into shared regardless, though, because we're not going to need all of that for Vespula. And actually right here with this setup, I don't need my mage gear, and I won't need it until I'm at home again. I'm pretty much done with the mage setup, so I can actually go bank that real quick. I think one of the craziest differences between our raids now and then is having the ability to just put away all our mage gear. Look at all this space we have, right, for potions and stuff. Alright, so one more chest right there. Alright. Deposit, and we should be good to go. We're going to open up private. There's a few things we need to grab. We're going to need the salve, the stamina, the pickaxe, and I believe that is it. So in the shared, overload and enhance, and then at the first raid showed us we need a ton, absolute ton of restores. All right, moving on. Overload and enhance. We're going to get that stamina going. We're going to need that for sure using the Bofa. Honestly, I wonder how many crystal charges I've lost to Vespula. Gone are the days where I'm constantly concerned about crystal charges for my armor, but man, was it a problem back then. Our DPS is not great right now. I think even for the BOFA standards, not just in general. There we go. That's a decent hit right there. There we go. There we go. It's evening out. Couple more hits here. One more, perhaps. Okay, we hit a 0. That should be it. Very nice. That was a 211 Vespula. Sounds about right, honestly. I think we'd be lucky if we got a sub 2. Alright, let's rearrange our inventory. Honestly, it feels very weird seeing all this empty space. And you know what? I was very adamant about moving my gear to the bottom of the inventory back then, so... Alright, here at Tightrope, another little change we have to make. I'm very accustomed to stepping out of range of the attacks, but I'm pretty sure I don't have to, as I'm 4-ticking the mobs here instead of using a twisted bow or something that's 5-tick. Nice and relaxing. I don't even have to click anything, you know? I will click on this brew though, on the 15s to heal up. Oh, that is spooky. Alright, we're gonna heal up here. Honestly, I don't really remember how I used to deal with these rangers. I guess just face tank them? Probably step back and then restore our stats a little bit and then step back in. We are taking so much damage here, jeez. Alright. $23 and we're making our way over to floor 3 of the challenge mode chambers as Xerics. We're gonna equip our melee gear here with the pickaxe. And then we'll put away this revet, get 2? Yeah, let's go with 2. And then fill our inventory up with brews. We're gonna sip this stamina and we can actually bank that, although I mean we have a ton of inventory space. I'm still very thrown off as to how much space we have. This is crazy, but I mean, this is how it was back then. And these brews were very much needed. All right, so our first run was a 52-minute solo CM, including a death at Vespula, which is actually a huge time killer. But 52 minutes for that setup, pretty good, honestly. It probably could have been a sub 50, but for a first run in that setup again after who knows how long, pretty good, pretty good. Oh, not to mention that we also messed up on the Ohm P3 hand and we reset the melee, if I recall correctly. So with the gear upgrades we have now, and hopefully we don't mess up, we will aim to do a better time than 52 minutes and some change. I feel like we can easily do a sub 50 in this setup. I mean, this dragon pickaxe we're using right now is an upgrade over the rune pickaxe. Surely a bit of time save even on this little section. But the Guardian's room is honestly kind of random. Even in speedruns, you'll see that sometimes people get like a 2-minute Guardian, sometimes a 1 minute. It's just, I don't know, it's a weird thing. This one was a 209, okay. Alright, let's go for the teleport skip again. I think we have it down now. It's fairly straightforward, honestly. Our both is absolutely noodling. Absolutely noodling. Quite unfortunate. These are our Fang specs. You know what? I think I was so desperate for space for more brews that I sometimes even dropped the Avas in favor of just camping the Fire Cape, because using a Bofa, you don't need to save your ammo. There is no ammo to save. Oh, we did forget to summon our Thrall. It's coming back to me now. I'm looking at the timer right now as we're working on Vasa, and I think I used to call it good if I made it past Vasa before 30 minutes. That was kind of like a little mental checkpoint for me. So right now at 27:30, and we're working on Vasa, that's pretty good. Again, there's been many changes to the chambers over the years. Most of the changes making everything easier and quicker, actually. So Vasa's definitely easier now than it was before. Yes, if you didn't know, when you have to run through Vasa or Vasa's running over you, if you protect melee, it does reduce damage. It's not going to completely protect you, but you will end up taking less damage. Alright, let's put the salve on. Let's hit the energy pool here. Not as important these days, but back then, definitely. Back then, I'd be very low on stamina right now, especially if I didn't hit that stamina pool after Vasa. Two years ago, I needed to bring 3 staminas into these solo CMs, but these days I can get away with 2. And honestly, in max gear, I can get away with just 1. I don't think I need to use any staminas, realistically, to get through the rooms at all. I feel as though these mystics, and just about anything in this raid actually, is just absolutely slapping me while I'm sitting in crystal. But again, I guess this is how it was back then. To think I did hundreds of raids like this is honestly kind of insane in hindsight. Like that guy just boxed me for like a 36 right there. Jeez. Let's lure this guy over. If he would like to cooperate. Thank you. Okay, let's start healing up. Let's put our anguish back on. Tendrils are already out, so no fancy skipping there. Pick up this axe. And let's start chopping. Everything hurts, but that's Muttadile room for you, especially in the lesser gear. Holy. In Missouri and Oathplate, I'm definitely a little bit more tanky, and Missouri and Torva even. Obviously, there was an era where I was rocking Torva before the existence of Yama and Oathplate. Let's get our Thrall going. We're in our melee gear here. We're gonna step under between each attack, as the Fang is 5-tick, and we're also gonna dump our spec here. There we go, Baby Doll dealt with. We are just gonna safe up here. Unless you're planning on tick eating everything, it's always good to safe up here. But yeah, Muttadile is much easier these days because, look, we saw the Muttadile switch to attack mage, so we know after one mage attack it's going to do at least 2 more mage attacks. So that was the second one, and we're expecting a third one right here. There it is. Now we can safely switch back to range. It still could mage, but the range hits hit a lot harder. There we go, that's the Muttadile completed. Finished off. Now on Ohm. Alright, we have a spare overload and enhance, in which we're just going to get rid of those. Let's swap into our melee gear, although we are going to be binning this Fang. We're not bringing that into Ohm, obviously. We'll be swapping that out in favor of the Dragon Warhammer. Now, I can't tell you how many raids I've done where I've forgotten an item, and it's honestly so frustrating. And usually it's the Dragon Warhammer. There's been countless raids where I brought in the Fang instead of the Dragon Warhammer, which is really unfortunate. You know, this bronze axe, we're going to put it in our private storage. We're going to smuggle that out of here. Okay, and we also won't need the pickaxe, the salve. We will need the Thrall book, though. We'll sort that out in a second. I'm actually going to bank the range gear here because I don't want it at the top of my inventory. I'm going to withdraw all my mage gear. There we go. And then we're going to want our range gear. We're going to forego the... the crystal helmet. Although I do think we could get away with bringing it now, but, you know, to be safe, we're going to... Let's see what our inventory situation's looking like, I suppose. We're going to want the overload and enhance. 3 restores, I think. And yeah, I think this should be fine. We now have 1 less brew than we did in our first setup because we're bringing an ancestral hat, but I think we're going to be okay. In general, we're just so much more proficient at this raid now than we were back then, so I think this is more than enough. Are those famous last words? I'm not sure. We'll find out. We'll find out. So our hammer spec did land there, but it didn't do enough damage to... for him to, what do you call it? You know what I'm saying? That. You know, that. Anyways, let's start mage running. Nice and easy. I'm unsure of my current max hit, but I imagine it's probably like a 46. Up from our previous 44, I think it was. Just a guess here. Again, didn't run the numbers. But oh, 44 max hit. Okay, well. Still not hitting as hard as we would like, honestly. Let's get our melee thrall out. Portal. Alright, let's see if we can get into cycle here. Break our old habits. Or new habits, depending on how you look at it. Alright, attack twice, so we're going to 3-to-1 one time, I believe. Instantly run back. Okay, there we go. We just have to remember that. For anybody unaware of what I might be talking about here as I'm doing the 4-to-1 melee hand, is that I do 3-to-1 scythe, and during the 3-to-1 scythe, it's the same concept, however you have to wait a tick whenever you run to the middle. So right here, with the lance, a 4-tick weapon, we have to instantly run back, but with the scythe, you would burn a tick there. And on the previous run, I just kept waiting a tick when I didn't have to. Alright, P1 complete, 236, okay, not bad. And we took pretty much no damage, didn't have to heal at all actually, and only sipped 1 revit dose. P2. Unfortunately, hammer misses, but we're going to go for a second one. That also misses. Unfortunate. Not to worry, we have the light bearer on, and we'll be able to spec one more time. At the start of the melee hand. I do find the 3-0 mage running with a 4-tick weapon more fun than the shadow method, the 12-0 and the 8-1. But obviously the DPS disparity is massive, so, you know, like, there's no reason why you wouldn't do the shadow method when you have a shadow. But somehow this is oddly more satisfying. Couple more hits here. That should do it. Let's summon our mage or our melee thrall. Oh, we bonked it. Okay, we land a hammer. Perfect. Oh, that is quite unfortunate. You know, I'm wondering if I overloaded too early there. I may have overloaded too early there. So, like, I started overloading from, like, 77 health, or whatever I was at, instead of the 99. And then we just ate a massive 30-something. Oh, that's not great. I need a refit. At least one, you know? Okay, we're gonna have to 3-1 here. And now we should be in cycle again. Honestly, a shame that we once again died, you know? It does show you that, you know, gear is a big factor and being accustomed to your setup. I haven't done solo CMs in these setups in a long, long time, so I expect myself to do more damage. I expect to take less damage. And that's just simply not the case right now, so even though we are more comfortable with the raid in general and the mechanics, we just simply don't expect to get hit quite as hard, you know? Let's get our Mage Thrall going. So we are on P3 now, so we gotta be careful not to reset the hands. You know, it's not a good look right now. We've died on 2 out of 2 raids. Now, what I could do is run those back and pretend like those never happened, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. You know, like, we're gonna show that we've died, you know? It is what it is. Oh, okay. Alright, calculated. Alright, we're gonna send another hammer spec. And it's another miss. What can you do? Humble 0. Got the acid. We're going to try and do our best to stay in cycle here while dealing with the acid. Not perfect, but Good enough. Couple more hits here. There we go. Quickly into the mage. Alright, no issues this time. Perfect. Let's get our range throw going. Let's get some early rubies this time. You know, unlike the first run where we couldn't get any rubies until it just didn't matter anymore. Well, first things first, let's try to get in cycle, shall we? That's pretty important. Since the crystal is nowhere near as tanky as fortified Missouri, and our Dragon Hunter crossbow, especially if we're not getting any rubies, is nowhere near the DPS as a twisted bow. We are going to have to try and make sure we eat on our 15s here to keep our health up. Right here, we just have to eat right here because that was enchant range. I know the Torva helm. Yeah, I guess the face guard is better, huh? I haven't used the face guard in so long that, you know, I was just under the impression that the ancestral hat would be slightly better for me there, but if that was a Torva helm instead of the face guard, then yeah, that would be the case. I would wear the ancestral hat over it. Alright, we sat right at 43 health. That is the max hit, so not chancing that. I'm just gonna safe up here. Restore. Humble 0. On the off prey. Alright, there we go. That was a sub 50, a 46.29 with this setup. Pretty good. Pretty good. Rune arrows and grimy lantidimes. Again, the upgrades we got for this setup was the Aram's robe top, the ancestral hat, as well as one more thing that escapes me right now. What was it? Oh, the dragon pickaxe for guardians.